Good morning, everybody. It looks like the room is filling up, which is good. Joe-san, 早上好. Today we will talk about something different from Bobby Lee's amazing presentation. We'll talk about trust in human societies. We'll look at the implications of blockchain and Web3 to our concepts of centralized authorities, responsibility, and trust. The conclusion, my final thesis, is going to be quite controversial for a Web3 forum, and actually quite in the opposite direction as Bobby's. The conclusion is going to be that it's not really optimal for human societies to be completely trustless. But let's look at it step by step. So first of all, I'm Alessio. I'm the founder of Hex Trust, a digital asset custodian with offices in Asia, Europe, Middle East, and Americas. I'm also the founder of Clearpool Finance, a decentralized marketplace for credit for institutions, and also the co-founder of Griffin, a collaboration between Animoca Brands and Hex Trust to bring the first metaverse wallet and passport to Web3. Enough of me. Let's go and talk about centralized authorities. I think in all the presentations that we've seen throughout the week, everybody has been highlighting the deficiencies of centralized authorities. The fact that they have the power of censorship, that they're a single point of failure, that they actually make decisions by themselves in a non-transparent way. I think more philosophically, the main issue with centralized authorities is that the decisions that they make impact people that are not involved in the decisions that they make. So we've seen the result of this in the traditional financial world in the last 15 years, failure of central banks in 2018, preventing the financial crisis. We've seen failures of banks. We've seen fraud. We've seen a lot of money laundering happening in banks. Yes, money laundering actually still happens more in banks than in crypto companies. We've seen leakage of customer data. Yes, again, banks usually leak more clients' data than whatever happened in the crypto industry so far. But we've seen also the same types of failures in the crypto industry, right? So we've seen managers committing fraud. We've seen managers appropriating customer funds. And we've seen the same type of lack of transparency that led to the same results. The real thing is, if FTX had been a glass box instead of a black box, it wouldn't have been possible to buy mansions by the beach or to use clients' money for other reasons. When it's a black box, the opportunity makes the thief. So the question that everybody should be asking is, why do we need centralized authorities? For what? I was thinking about yesterday, and 3 reasons came to my mind. There could be others, but those are the main 3 reasons. The first one is that they are imposed to us. There's very little we can do, right? So the governments impose money laundering rules and counter-terrorism financing rules. Very little we can do. We have to accept it. It's for the general good of societies and nations. The second one is some centralized authorities, we actually choose them. We don't really want to take care of every single aspect of our daily life. We don't want to take care of firefighters. We don't want to take care of cleaning services for cities. We don't want to take care of the daily management of our cities and towns. So we choose to delegate these activities to some authorities. The last one is that when we don't have any alternative, in today's world, we don't have an alternative to actually record the ownership of our house other than the real estate registry of the city where we live in. There's no other alternative if we want to talk to a friend and using WhatsApp, Facebook, or LinkedIn to contact somebody professionally. So we have no alternative. So now, if we think about the first two kinds, I don't think we can do without the imposed authorities. It's too much for us to get rid of them. And I tend to believe that if we really choose to have some authorities in the second category, there must be a reason. Now, the real disruption of blockchain and Web3 is in the third category, the one where today, in today's world, we don't have any alternatives. So what is the alternative? We heard in the other presentations that we could build a new paradigm where the user of a system becomes the owner of the system. What does it mean? It means that the user will be involved in the decision making, will be part of the monetization, will be in control of its data, will also be part of the development of the system itself. This is a real shift, and it comes with a lot of positive things. For example, I don't want to bore you with a lot of slides about Web3. I think you've probably had enough. But let's have a look at one simple thing. Web2 companies, they capture all the revenues generated by the users. It's the same thing for Facebook, for Twitter, for Instagram, and the same thing for Binance. Right? In the Web3 companies, actually the share of revenues that is captured by the company itself is much lower, because the other revenues are actually shared with the users themselves, as they are the decision makers and the owners of the platform. So this is extremely important, but there are also some other effects that we need to take into consideration. With ownership comes a lot of responsibility. What does it mean? It means that actually not everybody wants to have their own wallet. Not everybody wants to be their own bank. Not everybody wants to have to control and have the responsibility of their private keys. Not everybody wants to actually put their life savings in a stable coin that is actually not stable, and probably their life savings will go to zero. Not everybody feels comfortable putting the life savings in an apartment that is then stored in a smart contract. Right? So responsibility and accountability that come together with owning a system is actually extremely important. Users on one side positively have a vested interest in the success of the system, but on the other side, they have to take the responsibility and the accountability of the system itself. So when we put the trade-off of accountability and responsibility into the equation, we will see that actually decentralization can add value in certain use cases, but it's not the solution for everything. When accountability, the burden of accountability and responsibility is too much and too risky for users, then probably a centralized system or maybe a hybrid system could be more beneficial. All right. Now we've covered this thing, but now we have to go a little bit more into the philosophy. And it's the last thing, so try to follow my reasoning. I believe that if the only problem was the burden of responsibility, probably we could partially solve it with technology. We heard about MPC, etc. We can share the private key burden across different people. And probably we could find better solutions for that. However, I do believe that a system that is completely trustless is not optimal for systems that are built for human societies. Why? To understand this, we really need to go back and look at what money actually is and why we have money. I will use an analogy for blockchain so that everybody will feel comfortable. We're always talking about layer 2 technologies in the blockchain space, but actually we also have layer 2 technologies in the traditional space. So the money that we use every day, the credit cards, the paychecks, all of these things are actually scaling technologies for the layer 1, which is the fiat money and the gold, and before it was technology. Why do we have scaling technologies? Because we cannot go on a trip with gold, and we cannot use central bank claims to pay for our expenses. But if fiat money and gold is layer 1, what's underneath that? What is the layer 0? So every single society is based on something called credit. And credit is based on trust. We cannot have a human society without credit and trust. When we do a favor for somebody, somebody owes us something. And this is what creates the human society. And this is why we have credit. And the only reason why we invented money is to make credit fungible. Now think about the fact, if you're going to a barbecue party, a nice barbecue party, if you really want to have a good barbecue party, somebody would bring sausages, somebody would bring wine, somebody would bring cutlery, right? But you're not going to ask your friends, how much did you pay for the bottle of wine, or how much did you pay for the 3 sausages that you brought to the party? You just trust them that they have actually brought more or less the same value that you've brought to the party. And if they haven't, you think that next time they will actually bring more. Or maybe you don't invite them anymore because they're stingy. Same thing if my friend Jacob, that is in the front row, is asking me to help him another time with his moving to a new apartment. Well, I don't expect him to help me the day after to do exactly the same relocation to a new apartment. Maybe he will help me with something else. So that's what the whole human society is based upon: credit, favors, and trust. So can we completely remove trust from the equation? I don't think we can have a real human society. So where is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is actually important anyway, right? Because Bitcoin is a new type of layer 1, a new type of money, where we don't need a central bank anymore. But it's still money. And it's still based on trust. We need Bitcoin because we need to pay for something. And if we build a new economy based on Bitcoin, we'll still need the fractional reserve and banking system that Bobby Lee didn't want in the economy. If we don't have that, if we have a fully collateralized world where nobody trusts each other, you could not go to university. You have to save the whole amount of the tuition fees before going to university. You could not buy a house with a mortgage. If you're a company, you could not raise money to build a factory before starting operations. It just doesn't work. It's not optimal for a society. So, to conclude, we went through a number of things. We went through the role of centralized authorities and why they don't work very well sometimes. We went through the fact that without centralized authorities, somebody has to take the responsibility for the absence of trust in the system. We talked about the importance of trust in a human society. Now, I would like to leave you with an open question. Right? Instead of really looking at building a system where we don't have any trust for a human society, how about we try to build a system that is based on decentralization and trustlessness, but at the same time, we also bake in the basic principles of trust. This would make the decentralized economy extremely scalable and much more valuable than what we have right now. And I encourage all of you to think about it as a next step for the development of the blockchain economy. Thank you very much. Have a great Friday, and it was an honor to be here.